Hi all, Jack here. Hey, did you hear? AOC recently made her first TikTok. In the video, the Congresswoman addresses a proposal to ban the popular social media app. She declares this move unprecedented and says we should instead focus on protecting individuals from data harvesting. What really stood out to me is that nothing about this is business as usual. When there are big moves over national security, Congress gets a classified briefing. But according to AOC, the White House hasn't been able to offer any evidence that there is indeed a threat.
Usually when the United States is proposing a very major move that has something to do with significant risk to national security, one of the first things that happens is that Congress receives a classified briefing. And I can tell you that Congress has not received a classified briefing around the allegations of national security risks regarding TikTok. So why would we be proposing a ban regarding such a significant issue without being clued in on this at all? It just doesn't feel right to me.
Okay, let's take a step back. The motion in question is called the Restrict Act, which was introduced by Virginia Senator Mark Warner. The act is being touted as a means of ensuring national security in a so-called rapidly changing technological threat environment. But AOC isn't alone here. Echoing her concerns, Representative Ilhan Omar called it bad policy. And much like AOC, she wants us to focus on actual standards and regulations around data harvesting and privacy violations across social media companies. While they're not wrong, both of these women are missing the bigger problem, but I'll get to that in a minute. As you probably know, AOC and Omar are two members of the Squad, a group of young progressives with a penchant for identity politics. Harmony amongst the ranks is standard form for these ladies, but this proposal finds them courting strange bedfellows. As usual, Paul gives zero f***s. He opens his recent op-ed saying, "Congressional Republicans have come up with a national strategy to permanently lose elections for a generation." Paul's uncompelling partisan plea quickly shifts, however, into something with deeper implications when he quotes Doctors Mueller and Farhat of Georgia Tech. If nationalistic fears about Chinese influence operations lead to a departure from American constitutional principles supporting free and open political discourse, we will have succeeded in undermining our system of government more effectively than any Chinese propaganda could. To her credit, even Omar recognized that this is a censorship concern. In her letter, she highlighted how the American model rests on our protection of those freedoms to speak publicly against the government. It's what sets us apart from authoritarian regimes like China. And that comparison with China is a pretty common thread. While Paul asks, do we really want to emulate China's speech bans? Tucker Carlson, speaking to Glenn Greenwald, had this to say.
Never thought that we would be in this position. We've criticized TikTok pretty consistently for a number of years now, and certainly the government of China. But this does seem like an effort to make us more like China.
Now, Tucker's no fan of TikTok, and for good reason. There is plenty to be worried about. Hell, China doesn't even allow it in their own country, not like it is here anyway. But none of this comes close to what the real issue is, and why you should be worried. You see, the Restrict Act isn't about TikTok at all. It's about granting the Biden administration a completely blank check on spying and censorship. Some compare it to the PATRIOT Act. I'd go so far as to say it's much, much worse.
What we are finding out is that the act, it doesn't really have anything to do with TikTok. It actually is about giving authority to the government to basically ban and surveil communications across all of social media. The Restrict Act is not just limited to TikTok. It gives the government authority over all communication, domestic or abroad, and grants powers to enforce, quote, any mitigation measure to address risk and national security now and in any potential future transaction, including but not limited to financial transactions.
The bill would regulate, quote, certain transactions between persons in the United States and foreign adversaries. Now, what's a foreign adversary and who gets to decide? Oh, well, the Secretary of Commerce and the DNI, not the Congress, get to decide what foreign adversaries are.
Are they going to say we're foreign threats because, we try to fairly represent both sides of the Russia-Ukraine dispute, while understanding that Russia is the aggressor and Vladimir Putin is very bad, but, we try to offer some pushback to the mainstream corporate press position. Yeah. Are we going to be described as a foreign influence and though YouTube can't host us?
It's very concerning.
Just like with the Patriot Act and other government overreach bills, they couldn't help themselves to try and basically write in their dream legislation for the Department of Homeland Security. This is like the greatest wish list that the DHS, the FBI, and CIA have all been looking for now.
Of course, the government will say, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to worry about. If you believe that, you were probably a little aroused by that fourth booster. Thanks to the Twitter files, we already know the White House pressured social media to censor people.
The U.S. government, however, is guilty of similar sins as China. Both the Twitter files and the Facebook files have shown that American social media companies have faced relentless pressure to restrict speech on controversial subjects like COVID-19 vaccines, Hunter Biden, the 2020 election. Federal agencies, including and not limited to the State Department, the Department of Homeland Security, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the FBI, and even the White House itself have all communicated with moderators at social media companies, urging them to take action against legal speech.
Hell, they've even bragged about their success. The fact is, people were fraudulently censored over allegations of being Russian agents, and that was behind closed doors. This act gives them permission to do it openly. Look over the past few years and think about all the things we weren't allowed to say on social media. How much of that has turned out to be true? Don't support lockdowns? Well, that's exactly what a Russian agent would say. And the consequences are absurd.
And by the way, if you run afoul of this monstrosity, they can fine you $1 million or throw you in prison for 20 years.
Nuts.
It is insane.
Under the Restrict Act, VPN users face 20 years in jail and $1 million fine if they evade U.S. internet censorship. They would put you in jail for 20 years for using a website or app that is operated by a foreign adversary.
And let's not forget that just last year, the Department of Homeland Security considered mis- and malinformation as national security threats. But hey, didn't you hear Paul shut this bill down? Not quite. The bill Paul shut down was introduced by Hawley, not Warner. We're talking about the Restrict Act. See, that's the problem when medias don't reference the bills by their legislative citations. If you have two bills with the same moniker, it's easy to confuse them. But hey, at least we can trust our representatives to be informed and make the best choices for our country. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, I don't think I support the Restrict Act.
You don't support this because you were named as one of the supporters, because this is garbage.
Well, is this the one with John? There's two bills out there. One allows a review of businesses that are connected to China, give the secretary the ability to protect our data. Is that the Restrict Act?